You've felt it, haven't you? That magnetic pull towards something you know will leave you empty. Again, a person, a habit, a pattern, beautiful in its promise, brutal in its aftermath, and yet you return. Not because you're weak, but because something in you mistakes the ache for aliveness. Why do we crave what destroys us? Nietzsche once warned that man's greatest danger lies not in the external world, but in his own heart, in the unconscious dance he performs with pain, longing, and illusion. We aren't merely victims of addiction or obsession, we are co-authors of it. Somewhere deep inside, we believe that this craving, this self-immolation is meaningful, redemptive, romantic even. But it isn't. This is not love. This is not healing. This is a trap, and you are its architect. Welcome to the truth, Nietzsche dared to speak, that much of what we call desire is just a beautiful form of self-destruction. When desire becomes self-sabotage, there is a craving inside you that whispers with velvet softness. It tells you this time will be different, that the wound will close if you press against it just right. But each time you obey, you bleed more and call it destiny. Nietzsche saw it clearly. Humans are not drawn toward peace, but toward the familiar structure of their suffering. We reach for the same flames, not because we seek warmth, but because we want to confirm the burn. The cycle gives us identity, predictability, control in chaos. Desire becomes self-sabotage when it is no longer guided by truth, but by trauma, masquerading as intuition. You aren't chasing joy, you're chasing repetition. The pain feels like home, so you decorate it with hope. You were taught that if it hurts, it must be real. But the truth, most of what hurts you is not profound. It's just unexamined. The allure of pain as proof of life. There's something perverse in the human spirit that confuses agony for authenticity, as if suffering validates our existence. We cry out, "Look how much I feel, look how deeply I break," as if pain were a trophy of being awake. But Nietzsche warned, beware of those who make pain into virtue. Not all wounds are sacred. Not all heartbreaks make you holy. Sometimes we seek pain not for transformation, but for confirmation, to prove that we are still here, still breathing, still capable of feeling, even if that feeling is despair. Emotional agony becomes a twisted mirror of aliveness, and in that craving we forget life is not proved by pain, but by power, quiet, radiant, unapologetic power. How craving masks inner emptiness. When the soul is empty, it doesn't whisper, it screams. But instead of listening, we drown the silence with craving. We chase dopamine, drama, and attention like thirsty beasts in a desert of meaning. The craving isn't for pleasure, it's for distraction. Nietzsche called this nihilism, the silent death of value. When you no longer believe in your own worth, your own will, your own vision, you outsource your aliveness to sensation. You become addicted not to the thing itself, but to the way it numbs the void. That's the trap. The more you crave, the less you feel. The more you feel, the more you suffer. And round you go, mistaking movement for progress. But craving cannot fill the abyss. It can only decorate its edges. The shadow side of romanticizing suffering. There is a poison in modern culture. The glorification of suffering. We turn heartbreak into poetry, toxicity into passion, and anxiety into aesthetics. We call trauma character and chaos depth. Nietzsche would have laughed or wept. Suffering, he said, is not inherently noble. It is a byproduct of life, not its meaning. To romanticize your wounds is to remain forever enslaved by them. To wear your scars like armor is one thing, but to wear them like jewelry is to mistake your chains for art. You are not deep because you suffer. You are deep when you transcend the need to suffer. It is not your pain that makes you worthy. It is what you build in its aftermath. And that construction begins when you dare to look your cravings in the eye and say, I see you, I know what you are, and I choose to walk away. Nietzsche's view on human will and destruction. Nietzsche did not believe that man's ultimate drive was happiness. He believed it was power. But when this will to power is denied its full expression, when society, religion, or fear castrate the soul, it contorts, it collapses inward, it becomes the will to suffer, not consciously, of course. You don't wake up and say, I want pain, But your choices, your patterns, your obsessions, they betray a deeper truth. You keep choosing what wounds you, not because you enjoy the agony, but because it gives you something you've been denied: intensity, meaning, movement. Pain becomes your rebellion, your religion, your proof that you still matter in a world that numbs. Nietzsche saw this as a corruption of the will. When you can't create, you destroy. When you can't conquer the world, you conquer yourself with shame, guilt, and beautifully tragic breakdowns. You do not want to suffer, but a buried part of you believes perhaps you deserve to. Resentment as a subconscious compass. Buried deep within the soul of the suffering person is a feeling Nietzsche called ressentiment, a toxic form of envy and hatred turned inward. It begins when you feel powerless, when you watch others live boldly while you shrink. You cannot express your rage openly, so you swallow it. You call your fear virtue. You demonize the strong and worship the weak. You make your own inaction into morality, but that poison doesn't vanish. It festers until you start choosing suffering, because deep down you resent joy, you resent others' light, you resent the part of you that still believes in freedom, and so you sabotage. You build your compass from bitterness. You mistake self-destruction for justice. But Nietzsche's warning rings out. You do not become good by being broken. You do not become holy by being hurt. You become whole when you face your resentment and transcend it. The role of self-punishment in identity. What happens when your suffering becomes your story? When pain is all you've known, healing feels like betrayal. You identify so deeply with being the damaged one, the sensitive one, the broken artist, that letting go of pain would mean losing yourself. So you hold on to it, you nurse it, you punish yourself for healing too quickly. You fear joy because it threatens the only version of you that ever felt real. This is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Nietzsche knew that man clings to his suffering not because it is pleasant, but because it is familiar. We punish ourselves not to atone, but to preserve, to keep the fragile ego alive. But identity built on pain is a house made of ash. It cannot hold you. If you are to rise, you must let the story burn. The hidden pleasure in repeating trauma. Here lies the cruelest twist of all. There is a part of you that finds pleasure in the cycle, a sick satisfaction in returning to the same heartbreak, the same disappointment, the same collapse. It feels safe, it feels known, it feels like control. Nietzsche understood this repetition not as accident, but as unconscious ritual. The soul, lost in the absence of real purpose, reenacts its trauma like a play, hoping the ending will change, but secretly craving the familiar pain. This is not masochism, it is ritualized survival. But survival is not life. And here is your chance to interrupt the performance, to walk off the stage, to realize that what you crave is not the thing itself, but the emotion it gives you. And you can find that emotion, power, passion, depth, elsewhere, freely, fiercely, without the wound. But only if you dare to see it. Only if you dare to choose something else. How the past shapes present addictions. Your pain did not begin today. The things you crave, the chaos, the attention, the silent self-betrayals are ghosts of your origin story. Nietzsche once said, "Invisible threads are the strongest ties." And in your psyche, there are threads woven by early wounds, not easily seen, but brutally felt. You chase familiar chaos, not because it serves you, but because it resembles home. The lover who never chooses you, the friend who belittles you, the risk that always ruins you. These aren't random, they're repetitions. Your nervous system remembers what your conscious mind forgets. And so the past becomes a map, not toward freedom, but toward the familiar. To break addiction, you must rewrite memory. Not erase it, but re-narrate it. To stop seeing your suffering as fate and start seeing it as a starting point. The myth of healing through repetition. There's a dangerous lie that suffering whispers, "If I just go through this one more time, I'll heal." So you return again and again, thinking that maybe this time the person who hurt you will finally love you. That if you reenact the trauma perfectly, you'll rewrite it. But Nietzsche would scream, this is not healing, this is compulsion. You are not becoming stronger, you are becoming numb. Healing does not live in repetition. Healing lives in rupture, in the radical act of choosing something unfamiliar, something quiet, something not dramatic enough to feel real, but gentle enough to be true. You must stop mistaking intensity for intimacy, chaos for connection, pain for proof. You do not need to touch the fire again to know it burns. Guilt, shame, and the craving for punishment. Somewhere deep inside, a whisper says, you are not enough. You are too much. You are the problem. And that whisper grows until you believe that suffering is not just familiar, it's deserved. Nietzsche saw guilt not as morality, but as a mechanism of control. Shame turns lions into lambs. It trains you to crave punishment, not for redemption, but for relief. You sabotage relationships, you procrastinate dreams, you numb with addiction. And each time you fall, something in you sighs, see, I knew I was worthless. But guilt is not a compass, it's a cage. It doesn't tell you what's right, it tells you what will keep you small. And you were not born for smallness. You were not meant to crave punishment. You were meant to create transformation, escaping the loop of familiar pain. This is your loop. You want love, so you choose chaos. You want peace, so you seek distraction. You want power, so you self-destruct. And then you wonder why nothing changes. The loop is not a curse, it is a choice, not a conscious one, but a habitual one. The brain clings to familiarity, even if it's poisonous. Nietzsche demanded we confront this loop, not with willpower, but with awareness. Until you name the pattern, you are its prisoner, but once you see it, truly see it, you gain power. Power to pause, power to pivot, power to walk away from what once felt like destiny and say, no more. You are not a victim of fate. You are a mirror maker, and it's time to shatter the one that only reflects your pain. Nietzsche's call to brutal self-honesty. Nietzsche never asked you to be good. He asked you to be honest, radically, painfully honest. The kind of honesty that strips away your justifications, your poetic excuses, your aestheticized pain, and leaves you naked before your own shadow. You say you want love, but what kind? You say you want peace, but are you addicted to noise? You say you want healing, but does part of you fear who you'd be without the wound? Nietzsche understood that self-deception is the most dangerous prison because its bars are invisible. You don't know you're trapped. You think you're choosing, but you're just replaying. To wake up is not to change instantly. It is to feel the weight of your delusion, to admit, I have been craving what kills me. That admission is not weakness. It is your first act of power. Recognizing the inner voice of the herd inside you, there's a voice that doesn't belong to you. It tells you to obey, to conform, to seek approval. It whispers that discomfort is dangerous and rebellion is sin. Nietzsche called this the morality of the herd, a system designed to keep you docile, predictable, safe. It rewards your suffering with pity, your mediocrity with praise, your silence with belonging. But belonging is not always freedom, and pity is not always love. This inner voice, it shames your fire. It tells you you're too much when you speak your truth. It tells you to dim your light for others' comfort. It teaches you to hate your hunger, your ambition, your rage. And so you crave what destroys you, because you were taught that destruction is nobler than desire. But Nietzsche's challenge is clear. Kill the herd within you. Burn its script. Write your own. The lie of comfortable misery. Here's a bitter truth. Most people would rather suffer predictably than risk joy. Joy demands vulnerability. Misery is familiar. Joy asks you to open. Misery lets you stay defended. And so, you create a life of manageable pain, dead-end jobs, lukewarm relationships, self-sabotage rituals. You tell yourself, At least I know what to expect. But comfort is not the same as safety, and misery is not meaning. Nietzsche's madness was clarity. To live fully, you must risk everything. You must step beyond the edge of your comfort, not because you're certain, but because you're alive. To choose discomfort in service of truth is courage. To choose comfort in service of survival is slow suicide. You are not here to survive. You are here to become. Choosing courage over craving. The craving is still there. The trap still glows, the old path still beckons, but now you see it. And once seen, it can no longer enslave you unless you choose to look away. This is the turning point Nietzsche speaks to, not in theory, but in your bones. Will you follow the craving or confront it? Will you let your pain seduce you again or step into the terrifying, glorious unknown? Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action in spite of it. You don't need to be ready. You need to be willing to disappoint others, to walk alone, to face the silence inside you and whisper, I choose something else. And that is where liberation begins, not with the vanishing of the craving, but with your refusal to obey it. The power of becoming the sculptor of desire. Desire is not your enemy. Desire is a raw, divine force, a river with no moral compass, no inherent direction. What matters is not that you crave, but what you crave and why. Nietzsche believed in the artist of the self, the one who does not extinguish desire, but sculpts it, who bends the will to something higher, something self-made, not the craving of addiction, but the vision of becoming. You are not here to obey your hunger blindly. You are here to guide it, refine it, alchemize it. You once craved what destroyed you because destruction was the only language you knew. Now, you are learning a new one, creation. To sculpt your desire is to stop asking what the world will give you and start asking what you will build, what truth you will serve, what fire you will light, not just for yourself, but for others still lost in their craving. How to redirect the will to power. You were never powerless. That chaos you kept inviting into your life, it was power misdirected. The toxic relationship, power. The addiction, power. The constant sabotage of your own greatness, still power, but turned inward. Nietzsche's will to power is not dominance over others. It is the intensification of life. It is the ability to shape meaning, to transform instinct into creation, to choose your suffering consciously for a purpose. Redirection begins with one question. What if I stopped craving pain and started craving expansion? What if, instead of repeating your trauma, you repurposed it? That same fire that once consumed you can now illuminate others, but only if you claim it. Only if you stop being the victim of your will and become its master. Creating joy beyond craving. There is a kind of joy that has nothing to do with pleasure. It is not dopamine. It is not thrill. It is not the fleeting rush of being wanted or the hit of being seen. This joy is quieter, but it is deeper. It is the joy of alignment, when your actions match your truth, when your solitude becomes sacred, when your boundaries are not walls, but doors to something real. This is not the joy that craving offers. This is the joy that transcendence brings. Nietzsche knew that to become free, one must first survive the death of old values, and then dare to create new ones. That includes joy. You are allowed to invent your own joy, one that doesn't cost you your peace, and in doing so, you end the cycle, becoming the fire, not the moth. You were never meant to chase light. You were meant to become it. All your life, you fluttered like a moth toward the flame of craving, believing it would warm you, save you, complete you, but it only ever burned. Now the invitation is different. Nietzsche's legacy is not a map. It is a matchstick. You hold it now. The match that can ignite your own becoming. Not by craving, not by pleasing, not by surviving, but by creating. So here is your call to action. Stop asking, what do I want? Start asking, what wants to emerge through me? Stop chasing the ones who confuse your soul. Start becoming someone who clarifies the world. Burn the script, build the truth, be the fire. And if this message stirred something in you, if it cracked the mirror even slightly, then don't stop here. Watch the next one. Read the next page. Go deeper, go inward. The trap is fading. The path is opening. Your becoming has just begun.